If you're interested in the sport of video game speedrunning at all, chances are you've heard the name Summoning Salt. He's most famous for creating speedrunning documentaries such as Choco Mountain, the history of Mario Kart 64's most infamous track, and the history of Wii Sports Resort Golf World Records. These YouTube videos and others like them have garnered almost 150 million views since early 2017. Summoning Salt's casual, almost folksy style, combined with meticulous research and high production values, have earned him a devoted fan base that awaits the release of each new video with a level of anticipation that used to be reserved for Hollywood blockbusters. However, Summoning Salt, or Salt for short, isn't just a speedrunning content creator. He's a competitor too. In fact, before Salt became speedrunning's foremost historian, he had already established himself as a skilled speedrunner in several games, including the game for which he would become most famous, Mike Tyson's Punch-Out for the NES. Salt is arguably the greatest Punch-Out speedrunner of all time, and has done more to popularize Punch-Out than anyone else. But how did Salt become this titan of the sport? How in the world did he get so popular? Well, I'm glad you asked. Our story begins in the mid-2010s in the US state of California. Salt is a very private person and is reluctant to share personal details even in interviews. In fact, he's never publicly shown his face in connection with his online persona. However, we do know a few things about him. For starters, he's really into sports and is a fan of several California sports teams, including the San Francisco Giants of Major League Baseball and the San Jose Sharks of the National Hockey League. Salt also plays video games casually, anything from Super Mario Bros. 3 to Super Metroid to Call of Duty Zombies. He also watches the TV show Jeopardy! And is an enthusiastic coin collector who has streamed himself unwrapping multiple rolls of coins on the live streaming platform Twitch. And to be honest, this is a testament to Salt's personal magnetism. How many other streamers do you know who can get 500 viewers to watch an analysis of the market value of rare pennies? But for whatever reason, one day all of this wasn't enough for Salt, and on January 18th, 2016, a video appeared on speedrun.com. This video showed a 16:31:31 run in the single segment category of Mike Tyson's Punch-Out. Punch-Out is a 1987 boxing game for the Nintendo Entertainment System in which the player character Little Mac must defeat 14 opponents in order to become the world's greatest boxer. Like most games of its era, Punch-Out does not have a save feature, meaning all 14 boxers must be conquered in one sitting. This makes it very difficult, and the term Nintendo Hard definitely applies here. And speedrunning it? Well, Salt himself has said that this game is incredibly frustrating to speedrun, but that hasn't stopped a dedicated group of players from tackling it. Salt had been a member of this group from at least 2015 forward. In fact, he had been learning from two of the biggest Punch-Out speedrunners at the time, Sinister1 and Zallard1, since late 2013 or early 2014, and had been coming up with various speedrun strategies of his own since 2015. However, we don't have a recorded speedrun from him until the January 2016 one. And to be honest, it's a pretty inauspicious beginning. A CRT TV screen being filmed by what seems like a phone camera. But unbeknownst to the world at large, this was the run that kicked off an unprecedented streak of dominance in the Punch-Out world. At this point, the world record for the single segment category was Zallard, an experienced and talented Punch-Out runner who had set the first sub-16 time a couple of months prior. By the end of January, Salt was just over 10 seconds behind Zallard's time. By the beginning of March, he was 15 seconds ahead of it, and in firm control of the world record. And it didn't get closer either. He set a 15:38 time on May 24th, then a 15:34 on May 28th, then a 15:31 on June 16th with no answer from his competitors. But Salt wasn't done. He kept grinding for an even better record, and on June 30th, he got onto the most unbelievable pace that any Punch-Out runner had ever seen. Let's take a look at how it happened. The first boxer that any Punch-Out player encounters is Glass Joe. This is a very easy fight, and Salt's strategy was to buffer a string of punches until getting an opening for a gut punch. Now, when I say buffering, I'm defining that as holding a button down so that the input executes at the first possible frame. This circumvents human reaction times to achieve the input chains that are necessary for high-level speedrunning of Punch-Out. Salt used buffering to knock out Glass Joe and achieve a 42-second time for the match. The next fighter Salt faced was Von Kaiser, who is the first boxer that has random elements, also known as RNG, as part of his programming. During the fight, Von Kaiser can give either 1 or 2 stars to the player. Stars are necessary to use the powerful attack known as a Star Punch, which does extra damage to a fighter when used by the player. Salt got 2 stars and knocked down Von Kaiser more quickly as a result, saving 1 second. Next came Piston Honda 1, Don Flamenco 1, and King Hippo. The player encounters Piston Honda and Don Flamenco twice over the course of the game, and their first fights are relatively simple. King Hippo, on the other hand, is known as a major run killer in Punch-Out. He can only be damaged while his mouth is open, and he has a less than 50% chance per punch of opening his mouth. However, Salt got extremely good RNG and made it past this fight to gain 8 seconds of time over his previous splits. After this was the last fighter in the run without any randomness, Great Tiger. The Punch-Out community refers to Tiger RNG as a way to mock runners who perform poorly in this fight, but Salt avoided any Tiger RNG on his way to Bald Bull 1. This is the first Bald Bull fight in the game, and he can use 3 types of attacks: rolling jabs, right hooks, and right uppercuts. Like King Hippo, this is a fairly random fight as the optimal strategy for beating it requires Bald Bull to give an extra star and use rolling jabs in phases 2 and 3. It also depends on Bald Bull rising from the player's KO with a lower health bar than normal in phase 3. This is a lot of randomness, but Salt got all 4 conditions for the strategy and knocked Bald Bull out in just over a minute. This has a less than 1% chance of happening. Now Salt was halfway through the run and was on a pace no one had ever seen before, which meant that the pressure was on, especially because the next fighter was Piston Honda 2. Honda is quicker and smarter in this rematch. However, Salt used a strategy that he and Zallard developed together which used dodge buffering to lead into a Star Punch. This ended up saving several seconds on the Honda 2 fight. After this came Soda Popinski, who has easily the silliest name in all of Punch-Out, but his match is no joke because of the amount of randomness he throws at the player. Soda can throw either hooks or uppercuts, and he can delay his attacks by up to 4 seconds to confuse the player. Amazingly, Salt got both good uppercut luck and small delays from Soda, allowing him to gain another second on his PB. Next, Salt faced a rematch with Bald Bull and dispatched him easily, only to come face to face with Don Flamenco once again. Don Flamenco is considerably more difficult and random than his first battle, and low times for him require Flamenco to give additional lucky stars for star punches. This has a 1 in 16 chance of happening, meaning the Flamenco can completely wreck a good run very easily, and that's without factoring in the variable health refill that he gets after you knock him down during phase 2. But again, Zallard and Salt had worked out some routing strategies for Salt to use depending on what kind of luck Don Flamenco gave him. Salt used these to stay calm even when he committed a serious error in phase 1 of the fight that could have sunk the run and defeat Flamenco. Salt would say later, "By this point I knew that this run was something special. I felt like I was dreaming. It was almost as if I couldn't get bad luck. The game wouldn't give it to me. I was just hoping that I would be able to get a few decent fights to close out the run. But as it turns out, the game wasn't done giving perfect RNG." And he was right. This was the God run so far. But would Salt's luck hold? He still had to contend with some of the hardest fights in the game. First up, Mr. Sandman. He provides a much needed lack of RNG near the end of the run, and Punch-Out speedrunners use an unusual strat to beat him even faster. If a player presses the select button on the pre-fight screen, Little Mac's health will be reduced by half. This allows players to manipulate Sandman into using his special move, Greenland Express, around 2 minutes into the fight in order for players to dodge and KO him easily. The penultimate fight is Super Macho Man, who has an absolutely terrifying array of moves that he can send at the player. A right hook, an uppercut, a mini spin punch, and a super spin punch. He can also dodge star punches. How do you think Salt beat him? You guessed it, using strats that Salt had workshopped with not only Zallard, but also Sinister One and Ouijui, who was generally considered to be part of the top 4 in Punch-Out speedrunning during this time. And then it was time for the final boss, Mike Tyson himself. Tyson's arsenal of punches isn't as intimidating as other fighters, as he only uses uppercuts for the first minute and a half of round 1 and hooks for the rest of the match. No, what makes this fight so brutal is that Tyson can pause for varying lengths of time after every punch, with a 50% chance of an 8-second delay in phase 1, meaning that every run that makes it to the end of the game can be ignominiously extinguished with no warning. On top of this, the fight requires at least 20 frame-perfect punches in order to have a shot at a world record. Salt began his match staring down these long odds. Phase 1 went decently well with no 8-second delay, but Salt missed one of his punches and ended up losing 10 seconds because of it. The fact that this boss match requires over 2 minutes, longer than almost every other fight in the game, means it's easy to lose concentration during it. However, phases 2 and 3 were much smoother, with no punches being missed, and suddenly, it was over. Salt had beaten Mike Tyson's Punch-Out in 15 minutes and 12 seconds. He was 42 seconds ahead of Zallard in second place. No one could touch him. In many ways, this fight was more of a product of chance than skill, as Salt would later admit in his Speed Demos archive write-up for the run. Von Kaiser and King Hippo were both optimal fights. Salt's Bald Bull 1 fight had a less than 1% chance of happening the way it did. Piston Honda 2 is ideal as well, with Soda Popinski and Don Flamenco 2's fights having odds of around 2 to 4% to give such great RNG. Mr. Sandman, Super Macho Man, and the Tyson fight were optimal or nearly so. Salt got really lucky. But because of his preparation and practice with the other giants of the Punch-Out world, when the God Run came, Salt was ready to claim it. The amazing thing is, Salt had already been setting world records before this single segment stretch of dominance, because he'd set the top time in the Another World Circuit and RTA categories a few months prior too. The Another World Circuit is a hidden mode in Punch-Out, which can only be accessed with a secret passcode, while RTA stands for Real Time Attack, and measures how fast the player can beat the game in real time instead of in-game time. Salt would reduce the record in Another World Circuit by 35 seconds over the course of 2016, ending up 32 seconds ahead of Ouija Wii by August 2016. RTA was slightly more competitive, with Salt taking the record in March and Ouija Wii taking it back in April, for one day. This wasn't the only game that Salt was running during 2016. This was the year of Super Mario Bros. When 5 elite speedrunners, Darbian, Saradoc, Andrew G, Cosmic, and Sumwes were all gunning for the any percent record. Salt wanted in on the action too and started speedrunning it in May. While he was never an elite runner of the game, he was in the top 25% of times by the end of the month and finished the year with a 5:03, good enough to be tied for 23rd on the leaderboards. He also took a partial hiatus from Punch-Out in the later part of the year to focus on games like Magic Johnson's Fast Break, where he posted a 528 in the 100 points category, and the legendary SpongeBob SquarePants game Cash Dash, where he set a 252 in the Beat the Game category. Salt would later go on to capture world record in the category a few months later. As impressive as these accomplishments are, they were mere table setting for what he was about to do.
Few can say that they've beaten Mike Tyson before. He's topped many lists of the hardest video game bosses of all time, for good reason. The combination of lightning-fast reflexes and thorough knowledge of his patterns make him extremely difficult for a casual gamer to beat.
The day is January 7th, 2017. Salt has posted a little video called World Record Progression Mike Tyson, which is about the chase for the Mike Tyson individual stage world record. This was a pretty momentous occasion for speedrunning as it turns out, as this seems to be the first formal video in the world record progression genre of YouTube documentaries. However, as with most pioneering efforts, it looks more impressive in hindsight than reality. According to the YouTube video History of Speedrunning World Record Progression Videos by Save Data, Salt originally conceived the idea for this video in October 2016, but set it aside for a couple months due to frustration with the project not coming together creatively like he wanted. The video was ultimately released in January 2017. Salt's lack of experience with content creation is apparent, and it's easy to see why he was frustrated with the video. The audio is rudimentary, with some glitches, while the music track is just video game songs that seem mostly like filler. Salt launches into the technical aspects of beating Tyson without providing much explanation as to why anyone should care, and he talks about himself a lot at the end of the video, which comes off as self-aggrandizing. However, there's still a lot to like about Salt's first YouTube production. He celebrates his fellow Punch-Out runners Weejawi, Sinister, and Zallard, as well as the legendary Matt Turk, and it's obvious he thinks they're impressive people. He lays down the basic pattern of all world record progression videos by presenting records in chronological order. And hey, there's a rockin' Super Mario Bros. Remix at the end. Salt published 2 more videos by the end of the month. He got a huge break when Darbian, the legendary Super Mario Bros. Speedrunner, broadcast Salt's Mario Bros. Any % video on his Twitch channel, earning Salt thousands of additional YouTube subscribers. By the beginning of February, after just 3 uploads, Salt had 10,000 subscribers and was well on his way to viral YouTube success. Salt would go on to publish 14 more world record progression videos by the end of 2017, capitalizing on his newfound status as the YouTube speedrun explainer. Truthfully, these aren't that much better than the Mike Tyson video. Many of them are 15 to 20 minutes long, and are little better than recitations of each record, with no context as to why those records were important. Salt has stated that he is not proud of the quality of his early videos for many of the reasons just mentioned, noting his Super Metroid video in particular as one that was not well researched. Salt even removed 3 videos from this era of uploads: Mega Man 2, Cash Dash, and the original arcade Donkey Kong. Mega Man 2 was removed because of epilepsy concerns, and having watched this video myself, I can confirm it is at least 50% flashing lights. Cash Dash was taken down for legal reasons, but it's not one of Salt's best works, as it is an April Fool's video detailing Salt's chase for the Cash Dash world record. And the Donkey Kong video is removed because Salt does not have faith in its accuracy anymore, as more details regarding the duel between Steve Wiebe and Billy Mitchell for the Donkey Kong high score have emerged since the video's initial creation. All 3 videos have been re-uploaded by other channels on YouTube and are still available to watch, but they really don't add much to the Summoning Salt body of work and are easily dismissed. Still, there's much to enjoy about the early Salt videos. The Super Mario Bros. Video introduces the famous bus analogy that Darbian used to describe Super Mario Bros.' unique frame rule system of measuring time, and establishes a tradition of SMB documentarians using jazz music to accompany the action. The Super Mario 64 video coins the famous Salt phrase, "He got to work." The Super Metroid video, for all its faults, introduces a higher level of creativity and editing to Salt's channel. Salt also deploys a unique cast of characters to strengthen this generation of videos, with people like Abney, Andrew G, and Mitch Flowerpower showing up in 2017 uploads and later on. And by his final video in 2017, the Pokemon Red-Blue progression, Salt is using the format that he will later refine to perfection, using a single speedrun to explain all the technical details of a particular game. Of course, Salt wasn't idle on the speedrunning front either while he was pumping out videos. He spent several months playing Mario Kart 64 off and on, eventually rising to 13th on the All Cups No Skips Wii Virtual Console leaderboard with the 42 flat, less than 3 minutes behind current world record holder Abney. He bagged another Cash Dash world record, nearly tied the world record on the famous Atari game Dragster, and did tie the world record in Math Blaster Episode 1 In Search of Spot, a 1994 educational game for the Super Nintendo. He also kept grinding his Super Mario Bros. Personal best lower and lower, going from a 501 on March 25th, to a 459 on April 28th, to a 458.425 on October 25th. This time meant he was 15th out of 440 on the leaderboards. He even added a 21-minute warpless run to his Mario Bros. Repertoire at the end of the year, a time which he would eventually end up reducing to just over 20 minutes. But Salt's first love, Punch-Out, had become less of a focus. Perhaps like Alexander the Great, Salt had no more worlds to conquer. He did work on a few individual levels, also known as ILs, within Punch-Out, but otherwise his only recorded Punch-Out activity was setting the first sub-12-minute time in Another World circuit. The lull continued into 2018 with almost no speedrunning happening in the first few months of the year. Instead, He spent time creating videos on the challenging World 4-2 in Super Mario Bros. And the world record progression of Metroid. The World 4-2 video was his first non-progression video, showcasing his ability to diversify his craft and explore new topics. And the Metroid video added in the traditional style of opening credits that Salt still uses today. Both showed an increased grasp of pacing, editing, and usage of music. Suddenly, Salt was really good at creating YouTube videos. There was only one thing missing. Here it is, the perfect song for the perfect speedrunning video. This is Choco Mountain, the history of Mario Kart 64's most infamous track, and it is the first modern Summoning Salt documentary. It has everything. The credits at the beginning, a diverse cast of characters, interesting explanation of extremely technical details, and of course, We're Finally Landing, which has been called the Speedrunning National Anthem. There will be more famous Salt videos that will be watched and discussed and loved beyond this one. But for my money, this is the best video Salt's ever made. The Weather Tanko is an all-time great speedrun story. Choco Mountain hits a visual sweet spot by being both simple enough not to distract from the narrative and interesting enough to hold viewer attention. And, best of all, the music choice is sublime. While Salt's now iconic synthwave sound has been percolating through previous videos, it's now fully established as one of the things that sets a Summoning Salt production apart from everything else. Hi everyone, thank you so much for watching this video. It's really been a labor of love. I was inspired to create my channel by Salt, and making a documentary about his story has been so fun. If you've enjoyed what I've made, please consider liking this video, subscribing to my channel, and donating to me on Ko-Fi. I'm trying to devote more time to creating speedrunner biographies, and any help from you gives me more of a chance to do that. I also have a Twitch channel where I do speedruns and casual game playthroughs, so please come hang out. Thank you again for watching, and I'll see you soon for part 2 of the Summoning Salt story.